Hi, welcome back to the Wagon. My name's Steve and this is my wagon. First thing I need to do is thank each and every one of you for the reception of the last video. I am simply blown away by it. I don't know what to say. You know, the thank you for the views, the likes, the subscribes, the comments, all of it. I appreciate every single one of you taking a look, and just more than you know, I was really worried about that last video, or my first video. It's always daunting putting yourself out there, and I just appreciate it. Thank you. It spurred me on to do more, and hopefully you want more. Right, I'm not going to babble on this one. We're going to tell you what we're going to do, and then we're going to get on and do it. The first port of call is to lay the last sections of my main lines across the lift out section. That will complete my 4 circuits, and hopefully soon we can get something running. That's what we're all here for. It spurs me on, it will spur you on to have things running around, hopefully at speed, while we continue with the rest of the layout. So first port of call, last bit of track. Once we've done that, we're going to start a new project. As I said last video, we're going to do some Mark II air-conditioned coaches in O-gauge. We'll run through quickly what we're going to do, and then we'll get on with the track laying. The plan is to take, some of you are going to laugh at this, make no apologies, bear with me. We're going to take some of these, I'll be collecting these for a little while now. These are Triang big train Mark II coaches. They're toys, and we're going to turn this toy into a very good, hopefully, model of a Mark II air-conditioned coach. Helgen have just released the pictures of their decorated samples of their early Mark IIs. They look fantastic. I'm sure at some point somebody will release some air-conditioned ones, probably, just my luck, just as I finish this rake. It always happens, and I'm sure if you've built kits before, you've seen it, because I've seen it too many times. But for now, we're going to make our own. What are we going to do with this? Well, as the old TV program used to say, here's one I prepared earlier. This is my test coach for my Mark II rake. I'm really happy with the way this has turned out. This was done using a couple of the Triang big trains. I'm really chuffed with it. A rake of these running around behind a Deltic or a Peak or a 50 or a 47 is just going to look amazing. I'm not 100% happy with this particular one, but as we go through the next set, we'll put all the failings of this one and rectify them in the set of coaches. I'm really looking forward to getting into these. Hopefully you are too. And there's lighting, there's yeah, it's brilliant. We'll put this down for now. We'll pick that up a bit later. Let's go lay some track. Okay, so this is my lift out section. We're going to get some track laid across it, and then hopefully soon we can get some trains running. What we're going to need for laying track, we're going to need a decent pair of rail cutters. We're going to need a file to clean up any rail joints, some glue, which is PVA in this case, to glue the track down, something to apply it with, some track, and some fish plates. This for me is enough to get track laid, so we'll use this stuff and we'll get on with laying some track. First thing we need to do is prep the track for laying. Now for me this depends on whether it's on a scenic side or whether it's in a fiddle yard, and a lot of people tend to use the same method I use in the fiddle yard on their scenic sections, which is essentially just to cut off the last sleeper using some snips, and then lay the track, leaving you with a gap between the sleepers, and they fill that with spare sleepers that they've cut the chairs off. On my scenic section, I tend to leave that sleeper in place and simply take a pair of decent snips, slide them either side of the chair and the base plate that the chair's on, squeeze and pull out the chair on both sides. That leaves me with enough gap underneath the rail for the fish plates to attach. So we're going to start at the back. The other thing that I'm planning on this is that wherever possible, we should try and avoid putting joints in track on tight curves. So my plan is to cut this track halfway along the lift out section, because if I carry on that way, the next joint will be in the middle of a curve. So I've already got one joint on that curve, so I'm going to try and minimise the joints over there. We'll do that a bit later. But for now, we're going to line up the track with where it's going to go. We know that we've got to cut these sleepers out because the copper clad that we laid the other day is going to replace it. So we can remove some of these sleepers, and in fact, it looks like I only have to remove one. As long as I cut it tight up on there and there. There and there, that sleeper should pop out. So we'll get some fish plates or rail joiners on the ends of the track. And if they're very stiff, you can always use something to push them on with. I generally use the edge of the layout just to help them onto the rail. There are tools out there for this that many of the track suppliers can sell you. So we're connected in there. If the sleepers don't line up, don't worry, they can always be moved like so. And then we get this into position. Always run your finger over the track joint, because more times than I care to admit, I've missed the fish plate. I thought I've got it, but haven't. So always check that joint. I'm fairly happy with where that is. What I tend to do is run a pencil down the edge, just to give me a line of where the track's going. Now, sometimes you can remove it. If it's in a difficult spot, you can remove this piece of track. I tend to leave it where it is and then glue underneath it. This is not the prettiest part, I'll confess that. Now, some people like to glue the entire width of the track. I don't tend to do that. I tend to run a line of glue underneath the track down the middle, and I've never had any problems with that. Certainly on the scenic section, you're going to be ballasting, you're going to be putting extra glue. For me, there's no real need to go overboard on the glue on here. I've never had track come away, and on the occasions when you do need to lift track, it makes it a lot easier. So we'll take some glue, lift the track slightly. We'll start the hardest part, which is under here, and we'll put a line of glue there. And then we carry on just off the line that I've drawn on. Like so. We can then put that back in place, move it into position, and then we use lots of trusty drawing pins to hold it exactly where I want it. And with drawing pins, I prefer drawing pins between the sleepers because you can always move the track if you need to. I find it a much better method. I don't normally use drawing pins this close together. It's only because I want to hold there, either side of this joint, and then we'll spread them out further down. The tighter the radius, or the more complex the radius, the more drawing pins you'll need. And there you go. So for tighter curves, you may need to put drawing pins to hold the track, say where you want it. So you may need to put some in touching the rail to hold the track one way or the other. On this particular section, I think that'll be all right. So that's the first piece laid. We've got a few more to do. Let's speed this up a bit. It's the same thing with all of the track, so let's get it laid. So there you go, the track's gluing. We'll leave it to glue for a little while, then I'll remove the pins, and then we'll look at soldering the joints and cutting the rails. We'll do that in the next video. Before we move on to the O-gauge coaches, I just want to make a couple of replies to some comments on my last video. Janet made the suggestion of making a model of the wagon and putting it somewhere on the layout. Now, I think that was such a good idea. I'm probably going to do two. I'm going to make a good one, much like this one, put it in someone's back garden on the layout, and that will represent the wagon. Then I'm going to do another one in probably as found condition as I found wagon, and it'll probably end up somewhere around the steam shed. So we've got both ends of making it and the finished product. On the wagon, a lot of people have asked me to do a video about rebuilding the wagon. I don't have any footage of me rebuilding the wagon, but I do have lots of pictures, so I might do a short 5 minutes on rebuilding the wagon and show you how I did it. It's not traditional methods on how they used to do wagons, but I think it'll be interesting. The next comment came from Gary, and Gary was talking about my lift out section. My lift out section just lifts clean out from between the two baseboards and it goes to one side. Gary mentioned about putting a hinged lift out section. Now, if I did think about this when we first started the layout, and if I put a hinge here and my lift out section comes across here, when it lifts up, I'm left with 3 or 4 inches sticking into my walkway. Now, it's right at the front of the wagon, and I thought it's going to get knocked, it's going to get twisted, tracks aren't going to align, so I discounted it. And I was typing back to Gary saying, thank you very much, you know, we did think about it, but, and then I thought, hold on, gives me an idea. If I recess the layout over where the lift out section is, and I put the hinge back here, when the lift out section comes up, it's all kept within the confines of the baseboard, so I don't lose any width on my walkway. And I thought, that's a good idea, Gary. So, although we have laid track and we're going to continue with this, we may revisit this because it does demonstrate how you remake something rather than starting from scratch. So we're going to continue with the layout and the O-gauge coaches and other things, but we may come back to that and I may do a remodel over there. So appreciate that, Gary. The next few comments were about my Lancaster behind me. I'm an ex-aircraft engineer. I started in the Navy. I then went to work on warbirds after the Navy. So I've worked on a lot of warbirds in my time. One of my favourites is the Lancaster. I found this one on Facebook. It cost me a £5. It's got 4 engines in it. It's got retractable undercarriage. It's got servos. It's got opening bomb bay doors. It's a fantastic little model. It's not all together at the moment. I've got all the parts. One day I'll give it a birthday, put it back up there, but it's going to live pride of place there. It's not going to fly. I spent many years in my youth flying model aeroplanes, and in all honesty I crashed more than I flew, so I don't want to crash that one. I quite like it. I think I'll keep it. The next set of comments were about the size of the wagon. That's easy, we can deal with that. It's 18 feet long and it's just under 8 feet wide, so plenty of space. My mate Ben did comment about how much I could get in an N gauge. Yeah, he's very right. I could get a lot in N gauge. I'm fairly committed to 00 right now, but never say never. Let's see what happens in the future. There may be an N gauge layout somewhere in here. There's going to be every other layout in here at some point, but yeah, let's see how that goes. Last thing, I have to mention my t-shirt. This was bought for me by my beautiful fiance for Valentine's Day. That may seem weird to you. For me, this is fantastic. I love this t-shirt. Anyone that knows me knows I am a massive fan of Deltics. I have worked on them. I have slept in one overnight. They're amazing machines, and I'm sure by the end of all these videos you will know how much of a Deltic fan I am. So I've babbled again. What we'll do is we will get on with some O-gauge coaches. Let's go this way. Hello and welcome to the Wagon workbench. This is where I do the modelling that I don't need to do out in the wagon. It's nice and warm and comfortable, and I get to sit down, which is a bonus. Let's talk about O-gauge coaches. We're going to be converting this into this. We're going to talk about how we do it. We're going to talk about what this is, and then we're going to demonstrate over the course of probably a few videos. But yeah, hopefully you'll join us in the journey, and we can build a rake of these, and hopefully in the future I'll see some of you have built these, and we'll see plenty more of them out there just in time for one of the big manufacturers to bring them out. That's my luck anyway. Okay, here we go. First thing we need to do is take this apart. To take them apart is very easy. On the underside there are two flathead screws that undo. Once they're out, it's clipped in at both ends, but if you take it by the middle, let's hold this the right way. If you take it by the middle and pull it from the middle, they will pop out. As simple as that. Let's put that to one side. In the doors, they come with these. These are the sliding door mechanisms. They sit in there like that, and they slide up and down to represent opening and closing doors. To take them out, we simply unclip the top clip and then pull out the door insert. And we'll put them to one side because we won't be using those again either. Right, we're left with a bare shell. There's a lot of detail on here, a lot of detail we don't want. So, first thing to do is to remove as much detail as what we don't want on there. That includes window frames, door handles, door frames, and there's the joint between the white and the blue. There is a seam there, so we're going to get rid of all of that. We're also going to get rid of all the roof detail and the guttering. We're going to keep the end detail. We will modify it. We will cut a couple of bits off, like the handrail on this side, but the majority of the end detail we're going to keep. So let's do that first. Now, this may seem brutal, but it's got to be done, really. We're going to take a file and we're going to file off all of this. We'll know when we're getting close because the white paint on the lower surfaces will start to come off. Before we do that, we're going to remove the window frames because they're raised and that's extra detail that we don't want. Now we're just snipping them out because we're going to redo the windows in a little while. If you go straight in for this part here, that will stretch and you may crack something. If we snip it this part here first, it shatters apparently. Even easier, look at that. But what it does is it bows this piece out like so, and doesn't then break or stress it. We can then chop this piece here. We put a bit of pressure on the frame, it will just pop out. So let's get on with that. And there you go, easy as that. Pop them all out. We're going to clean up the bits that are left. We want them gone, and then we'll start to remove the surface. Okay, so extra bits have gone. It is a bit rough, but we'll sort that out at a later date. Next thing to do is the daunting part. We're going to remove all the detail from the side. So if I start here, and I'll find we're mainly concentrating on the rain strip because that's the biggest piece of detail. And as you can see, the paint's starting to come off here, which means that I'm very close to being on the bottom. So once we're at this point, we can then start moving down the coach. What I am doing is adding pressure with my finger underneath so that I don't bust the side of the coach in. Once I see that the paint's starting to go like that, I move on to the next bit. And there we go. Let's speed this up, get it done. I'll make no bones about it, it makes a lot of mess. That's one side of one coach almost prepped. Got the other side to do, and then only 7 more. So I'll get them done and I'll come back to you. We've got the sides prepped roughly. We've still got a bit more work to do on these, but we're now going to remove the roof detail. It's done pretty much the same way. We're going to file it off. Later on we'll fill the 2 holes and we'll deal with the edges. So we are going to take off all the ribs as well. So it's simply running a file over it until we see wear marks. You see the wear marks starting to appear where there we go, there's the wear marks. And once the wear marks go all the way across like that, we'll go on to the next one. Let's speed this up. So this one here, somebody's painted it silver at some point in its past. We'll treat this one exactly the same. We're going to take the ridges off. This one gives you a little bit more warning that you're getting down to plastic. With these you will need some sort of wire brush to get the plastic out of your file every so often, so that's always handy. And then get rid of them. Let's we'll get rid of the rest of these and then I'll show you what I do with the rest of the roof. Okay, there you go. So to get the rest of the roof flush and flat, I have a trusty block with a piece of sandpaper just glued to it. I've not bought this from anywhere, I've just made it. Took me a couple of minutes. Bit of plywood, and a bit of sandpaper glued on. We're going to start attacking it, and as you can see, it doesn't take long to get it down to plastic. I'm not going to kid you, this makes a lot of dust, but it shows that you don't have to get perfect ones every time. There we go. We'll speed this up, get the rest of this done. So there you go, that's the painted roof sorted. It actually helps because it shows you where the low spots are. When you use a piece of wood and you sand, actually bridges the gaps between the low spots. So it shows you where any imperfections are, and you can see there's the imperfection running along both sides all the way down, and then there's this low spot in the middle. It's not a problem, we can sort this. My test vehicle had exactly the same thing in it, so I'm not worried. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to square off all the windows, because we're going to fill these with plastic card, and if we leave them round, that means we've got to curve every piece of plastic card that goes in it. If we square them off and they're all identical, we can mass produce lots of plastic card, fill the holes, and we'll go from there. We'll do the same with the doors and the small windows on the ends and on the roof, and then we'll be left with effectively a Mark II plug. When we cut them up, we didn't cut them up before now, because the work we've done is, you've seen it, it's fairly brutal. If we have a cut in one and this is able to flex, the chances are we're going to snap the coach. I have snapped one, but we've got some spares. So we do all the brutal work while they're intact, and then we'll cut them up. So we're going to do the window corners next, then we'll look at cutting them up, and we'll look at the length and what length they need to be, and I'll show you an easy method of getting 7 full-length coaches out of 8 big train coaches. So the corners are fairly simple. We're going to take a file as square as we can get it. I'm going to put it in a corner, and I'm hoping you can see this. Yeah, put it in a corner, and with gentle strokes we're going to bring this out to flush with each side of the window. There we go, we've got a square corner. If we do that on all of them, we end up with square holes that are easy to plug. I'll get that done now. We'll go into fast. So there you go, there's the windows squared off on this one. Only another 7 more to go and we'll be ready to start cutting them up. Well, we'll leave the O-Gauge coaches there for now and we'll continue them in the next video. If you like your O-Gauge, I thoroughly recommend Kettering Show. It's on the 2nd of March. It's run by the O-Gauge Guild. It's a fantastic show. I love going to Kettering. They've got something for everybody. Even if you're not into O-Gauge, go and have a look. It's brilliant. I'm hopefully going to be there in the afternoon. If you see me wandering around, please say hello. If you've got this far in the video, you're an absolute legend. I thank you. I thank you again, each and every one of you, for supporting me. Couldn't have done it without you. Hopefully, we will see you again in the wagon. Cheers.